In April of 1815, a volcano erupted in Indonesia. Mount Tambora was the largest eruption in recorded human history. It threw so much ash into the upper atmosphere that, for the next 18 months, global temperatures dropped. Crops failed on 4 continents. The year 1816 became known as the year without a summer. That is the setting of this story. Hold on to it. In May of 1816, the most famous poet in Europe rented a villa on the northern shore of Lake Geneva. The villa was called the Villa Diodati. The poet was Lord Byron. He was 28. He was precocious beyond all reason, publishing at 19, famous at 24, scandalous at every age in between. Precocious means developing early, ahead of schedule, unusually mature for one's age. From the Latin precocious, pre, before, plus cocere, to cook. A precocious fruit ripens before it should. The same root cocere gives us cook, concoct, and biscuit, literally cooked twice. Precocious children, the Romans thought, were cooked early. Byron had been precocious at everything: poetry, scandal, debt. He had just been exiled from England under a cloud of rumors he would never quite outrun. He brought with him his personal doctor, John Polidori, and a brooding temperament that shaped every room he walked into. To brood, originally, is what a hen does on her eggs, holding still, warm, waiting. To brood as a mood is to sit on a thought the same way. A brooding person is quiet and dark and thinking about something you cannot see. Byron, contemporaries said, brooded magnificently. His reputation preceded him. Polite English society thought him perfidious, treacherous, faithless, and they were not entirely wrong. The latest scandal back home, a rumored affair with his half-sister, was what had driven him out of the country in the first place. Into this scene arrived 3 people from England. Percy Shelley, 23, already a published poet, already married to someone else. With him, the 18-year-old he had run away with, Mary Godwin, soon to be Mary Shelley. And behind them, Mary's stepsister Claire Claremont, 18, pregnant with Byron's child, which is in fact the reason the party had assembled at all. They were intrepid in a way that now looks almost unhinged. 3 teenagers and a 23-year-old had crossed half of Europe to spend the summer with the most notorious poet of the age. Mary in particular, 18, pregnant once already. She had lost a baby earlier that year. Her mother, the feminist philosopher Mary Wollstonecraft, had died giving birth to her. Her father had disowned her for running away with Percy. She had no family except the boy she had run to and the stepsister who was now pregnant with their host. She was in a house of poets. No one expected her to speak. And then the weather arrived. 1816 was tempestuous, almost beyond precedent. Tempestuous comes from the Latin tempestus, meaning storm, but originally meaning time or season. A storm was a stretch of weather, a season of violence. The same root tempest gives us tempest, tempo, temporal, contemporary. A tempestuous relationship, a tempestuous meeting, a tempestuous age, all are stretches of weather. Lake Geneva that June was a continuous storm, rain for days. Lightning walking the water at night. The party at the villa could not go outside. They could barely see the lake across the terrace. They became morose. Morose means gloomy, sullen. A morose person is not actively angry. They are quietly, persistently unhappy in a way that wears down a room. Percy Shelley, cooped up, grew morose. Claire Claremont, pregnant and unwell, grew morose. Polidori, continually mocked by Byron, grew more morose than anyone. And the lake outside became ethereal. Ethereal means otherworldly, airy, belonging to the heavens. From the Greek ether, the pure upper air, the air the gods were said to breathe. The same root gives us ether, atmosphere. An ethereal figure seems not quite of this world. An ethereal landscape looks painted, not walked through. The lake under lightning was ethereal. The villa, candles in every window, looked ethereal to any fisherman who passed. A party of English strangers trapped in a Swiss house, watching the water turn silver and black. And one evening, Byron proposed a game. He read aloud by candlelight from a collection of German ghost stories. The stories were Gothic. Gothic, as a literary term, means dark, supernatural. Architectural, crumbling castles, cursed families, secrets in locked rooms. The word comes from the Goths, the Germanic tribes who sacked Rome. For centuries afterward, Gothic meant barbaric or medieval. Then the 19th century took the word back and used it to describe stories of haunted houses and vanishing monks. Byron's delivery was lurid. Lurid means vivid in a shocking way. Sensational, gaudy, sometimes pale and sickly. From the Latin luridis, meaning pale yellow or ghastly. A lurid story is one told in colors too bright for comfort. A lurid headline is the kind the gentler papers refuse to print. Byron, reading German ghost stories by candlelight, could be counted on to make them lurid. When he finished, he closed the book and said, "I am paraphrasing, we will each write a ghost story." The challenge was macabre. Macabre means grim, death-haunted, unsettling. The word comes from a medieval French phrase, la danse macabre, the dance of death, a recurring medieval image of skeletons leading the living to the grave. Anything macabre carries that shadow, the presence of death as a subject. Percy Shelley tried first. He could not finish. Claire Claremont, too sick to concentrate, did not try. Polidori started something called a fragment that he would later finish as The Vampire, the first vampire novel in the English language. It is where Dracula comes from eventually. It is where every vampire you have ever seen comes from. But Mary, 18, overshadowed, expected to write nothing, froze. For 3 days, Mary tried and failed. Every idea felt borrowed. Every opening sounded like Percy's or Byron's. She sat at the desk. She stared at the page. The villa's formidable hosts and their formidable expectations pressed in on her from every room. On the night of June 16th, she gave up trying. She went to bed. Downstairs, the men talked late. They had been reading about galvanism, the 18th century experiments that showed electric current making dead frog muscles twitch. They talked about Erasmus Darwin, Charles Darwin's grandfather, who had conducted strange experiments on dead matter. They asked whether life itself might be electrical, whether a body might someday be assembled from pieces and reanimated. The conversation turned malevolent in tone, not in anyone's intent, but in its subject. If you could make life, what would stop you? What would you owe the thing you made? What would it owe you? An ominous question to leave the house with. Upstairs, Mary could hear them through the floor. She lay in bed, the storm still knocking at the windows. She was half awake, half asleep, in that floating state between the two. And she had a reverie. Reverie comes from the French raver, to dream. A reverie is a waking dream, a state between sleep and thought, where images come on their own and you cannot tell whether you called them or they called you. Reveries are not always pleasant. Some of them arrive in the shape of something sublime. Sublime in the romantic sense does not mean merely great or beautiful. It means beauty that verges on terror, the kind of awe you feel looking at a glacier, a thunderstorm, or something so enormous that your mind almost gives out. From the Latin sublimis, sub, up to, plus limen, threshold. The sublime is what stands at the threshold, just above the human level. The same root limen gives us liminal on a threshold. Subliminal just beneath it, below conscious awareness. Preliminary, before the threshold. Mary, half asleep, saw something sublime. She saw a pale student kneeling beside the thing he had made. She saw the thing on the table assembled from pieces, still not breathing. She saw the student step back. She saw the machinery whir. And she saw the thing open its yellow eyes. Mary sat up in bed. She had her story. She went down to Percy in the morning and said, "I have it." He asked what she had. She said something about a man who makes a monster. Something about what happens when you bring something terrible into the world and the world refuses to love it. She began writing that day. She was 18. She had no degree. She had no money. She had a stepsister pregnant with a scandal, a partner married to another woman, and a lake that would not stop throwing lightning at the window. She was about to invent a genre, 15 words, lock them in. Precocious, developing unusually early. Root, coquer, to cook. Brooding, moodily dark, quietly menacing. Tempestuous, stormy, turbulent. Root, tempest, time or season. Morose, sullenly, persistently gloomy. Ethereal, otherworldly, delicate. Root, ether, upper air. Gothic, dark and supernatural literary style. Luri, divid in a shocking, sensational way. Macabre, grim, death-haunted. Reverie, a waking dream, a daydream. Sublime, all that verges on terror. Root, limen, threshold. +5 you already know. Used today in context. Intrepid, perfidious, formidable, malevolent, and ominous. In Part 2, Mary Shelley writes the book, publishes anonymously, loses almost everyone, and watches the book become the blueprint for every machine we have since been afraid of.
Part 1 ended with Mary Shelley, 18, sitting down to write. Part 2 is about what the vision became. Mary began what she thought was a short story. Percy read the pages and told her she had something longer. She was tenacious. Just under a year later, she had a novel. The story goes like this. A young Swiss student named Victor Frankenstein arrives at the University of Ingolstadt. He is prodigious, so gifted he unsettles his professors. Prodigious means extraordinary in scale, impressive, enormous. From the Latin prodigium, an omen or a marvel. The same root gives us prodigy, a person who is marvelous. Victor's prodigious intellect leads him to a question nobody else is asking. He begins to wonder whether the principle of life itself might be isolated, identified, created. He finds what he calls the cause of generation and life. The novel never tells us exactly what he found. Mary Shelley understood that the power of the discovery lies in not naming it. Victor assembles a body, 8 feet tall, made of pieces. The creation scene itself is short. Mary gives it 1 paragraph. This is the choice that makes the novel modern. The horror is not in the stitching. It is in what comes next. The scene is visceral. Visceral means gut level, felt in the body before it is thought. From the Latin viscera, the internal organs. And what Mary gives us is surreal. Surreal means dreamlike, beyond the ordinary. The word was coined in the 20th century, above the real, but the sense it names is older. A surreal moment is one where the rules of ordinary life temporarily fail. Victor works for months, cut off from everyone. His health fails. His sleep fails. And then one night, it is done. He connects the current. The thing on the table stirs. The yellow eye opens. And Victor runs. He locks the door. He walks in the rain until morning. He abhors what he has done. When he returns, the creature is gone. This is the turn of the novel, not the making, the abandoning. Victor wanted to be the giver of life. He was not prepared to be the parent of a consequence. The creature tries to find a place in the world. Every place rejects it. It learns language by listening through a wall. It finds books in a discarded satchel, Milton's Paradise Lost, Plutarch's Lives, and realizes it is alone in a category of one. It becomes desolate. Desolate means abandoned, empty, alone. From the Latin desolare, de-intensive, plus solus, alone. The root runs through the language. Solo, solitude, soliloquy, soul. And desolation, in this novel, turns to revenge. The creature finds Victor and asks for a mate, a companion in its category of one. If Victor makes a second creature, the first will leave humanity alone forever. Victor begins the second. Then, mid-work, he looks at the 2 of them together and destroys the unfinished mate. What follows is foreboding made literal. Foreboding means a sense of something bad coming. From Old English forein, before, plus bodian, to announce. A warning delivered ahead of time, without words. The creature promises Victor, "I shall be with you on your wedding night." The pattern that follows is pernicious, subtle, patient, deeply destructive. The creature kills Victor's brother, then his friend, then, on their wedding night, his bride. Never Victor himself. Victor must survive to feel each loss. By the novel's end, Victor is remorseful beyond repair. He has lost everyone. He pursues the creature into the Arctic and dies on a ship in the ice, telling his story to the captain. The creature weeps over the body and walks off into the ice alone. The creature, to the last page, remains inscrutable. Inscrutable means impossible to read, a face or mind that cannot be known from the outside. From the Latin in, not, plus scrutari, to search carefully. The same root gives us scrutiny and scrutinize. An inscrutable expression is one that scrutiny cannot penetrate. And Victor is the hero of hubris. Hubris is Greek, the pride that makes a human act as if they were a god. In Greek tragedy, hubris is always punished. A hero rises, a hero oversteps, a hero falls. Victor wanted to be the giver of life. He was punished by the life he gave. The book was published anonymously in 1818. Mary was 20. Percy wrote the preface. Most reviewers assumed Percy had written the novel. The literary world was volatile in its response. Reviewers called it monstrous. Reviewers called it brilliant. But people read it, over and over. Between 1818 and 1823, Mary's life collapsed. Her daughter Clara died, her son William died. In 1822, Percy drowned in a sailing accident off the coast of Italy. He was 29. Mary was 24, with one surviving child. The grief was inexorable. Inexorable means unstoppable. From the Latin in, not, plus exorare, to prevail upon by prayer. The root orar means to speak, to pray. The same root gives us orit, oracle, adore. An inexorable force is one that prayers cannot turn aside. The grief that fell on Mary was inexorable. She could not pray it away. She was left forlorn. Forlorn means pitifully alone, hopeless, abandoned. From Old English forlorn, lost entirely. A forlorn hope is one nobody bets on. Mary, in 1822 and 1823, was forlorn in both senses, lost in grief, still doing the work. In 1823, she prepared a new edition of Frankenstein. This one had her name on it, Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. Widowed, 26, a single mother, a novelist. The society that had relentlessly gossiped about her could no longer condone it, but could no longer deny the book. Frankenstein was already bigger than its author. Since 1823, the book has never been out of print. Mary Shelley invented, that summer at Villa Diodati, almost every question science fiction has ever asked. What do we owe the things we create? What happens to a maker who cannot love their own making? Where does the monstrosity live? In the creature or in the maker? The same questions are being asked in 2026 about artificial intelligence. They will be asked again about whatever we build next. Villa Diodati still stands above Lake Geneva. You can walk past the gate. The lake, in good weather, is blue and calm. In bad weather, it still looks exactly like it looked in 1816. A final thought. Mary Shelley was 18 when she had the dream, 20 when the book came out, 26 when her name went on it. If you are 15 or 16 or 17 right now, and you feel that nothing interesting has happened to you yet, Villa Diodati is the answer. The summer the weather wouldn't stop was the summer one teenager, squeezed between a famous poet and a self-exiling lord and a pregnant stepsister, half asleep, invented a genre that would not exist without her. She became the author of a melancholy we are still learning how to read. Melancholy means a thoughtful, lingering sadness. From the Greek melas, black, plus chole, bile. In medieval medicine, your body was thought to contain 4 humors, fluids that determined your mood. An excess of black bile caused this specific sadness, inward, reflective, steady. The same root melas gives us melanin. The same root chole gives us cholera and choleric. Mary Shelley was melancholy for most of her life after 1822. She never remarried. She raised her son. She edited Percy's poems. She wrote 4 more novels. She died in 1851 at 53. The book she wrote at 18 has outlived every person who laughed at her for trying to write it. 30 words, 20 new, 10 review. Lock them in. From Part 1, Precocious, developing unusually early. Root, coquere, to cook. Brooding, moodily dark, quietly menacing. Tempestuous, stormy, turbulent. Root, tempest, time. Morose, sullenly, persistently gloomy. Ethereal, otherworldly, delicate. Root, aether, upper air. Gothic, dark and supernatural, literary style. Lurid, vivid in a shocking way. Macabre, grim, death-haunted. Reverie, a waking dream. Sublime, awe that verges on terror. Root, liman, threshold. From Part 2, prodigious, extraordinary in scale. Root, prodigium, omen, visceral, gut level, instinctive. Root, viscera, internal organs. Surreal, dreamlike, unreal, desolate, abandoned, empty. Root, solus, alone. Foreboding, a sense of coming bad. Inscrutable, impossible to read. Root, scrutare, to search carefully. Hubris, godlike pride. Greek. Inexorable, unstoppable. Root, orar, to pray. Forlorn, pitifully sad and abandoned. Melancholy, lingering, pensive sadness. Root, melas, plus chole, black bile. Plus 10 you already know, used today in context. Intrepid, perfidious, formidable, malevolent, ominous, tenacious, abhor, pernicious, remorseful, and volatile. If this helped you see Frankenstein, or sat vocabulary, or your own teenage self a little differently, subscribe for a new episode every week. End part 2.